Tom Bower over his new book, which says Prince Harry was brainwashed by his wife.
Harry and Meghan are going to be petrified about the idea of Tom Bower snooping back into their married life, right?
We love your cooking, we love your pancakes, and we love, love, love your hugs. You're the best mummy, and we love you. So sweet.
This woman is really doing something quite dreadful to Britain, and Harry has fallen in love with her in a ludicrous way and has gone along as her accomplice.
The biggest struggle for me was the people that no one around me really could help. I didn't have that support structure, that network, or that expert advice to identify what was actually going on with me.
There's a big difference between a rumour and a serious conclusion, yet almost nobody seemed to notice the exact moment one quietly became the other. When reports surfaced that Queen Camilla allegedly told a friend Meghan had brainwashed Harry, most people treated it as nothing more than royal gossip. It was seen as a sharp comment, tabloid drama wrapped in palace intrigue, and another headline designed to grab attention before disappearing from the news cycle. The story sparked a wave of reactions, a few viral videos, and plenty of debate online. Then, just as quickly, public attention shifted elsewhere. For many people, that was the end of the story.
I realized how successful she'd been. Here was a woman who was nothing. I mean, born, broken family, the whole thing, unknown actress, all the rest of it, becomes a global star, which is what she wanted. When she was about 9 or 10, she said to her father, I want to be famous, I want to walk down the red carpet. And she has now done that. And she's calculated that she could be a great success and by marrying Harry.
One comment, one royal figure, one unnamed source. Case closed and forgotten. But Tom Bower's book Betrayal, released on March 26, presents a very different argument. According to Bower, that remark was never meant to be viewed as simple gossip. He frames it as a conclusion based on a much larger collection of claims, accounts, and observations that he says are documented throughout the book. What makes the situation stand out is the amount of detail Bower reportedly ties to that single allegation.
Unfortunately, like most of us, the first time you really consider therapy is when you're lying on the floor in the fetal position, probably wishing that you dealt with some of this stuff previously. And that's what I really want to change.
He lays out a layered narrative involving personal relationships, public decisions, and major financial consequences. And in a twist that caught many observers by surprise, the attention surrounding Harry and Meghan's response to the book appeared to boost interest even further, helping push Betrayal to the top of bestseller rankings before physical copies had even reached readers.
In some ways, he does despise his wife. I mean, we saw that on the recent Middle Eastern tour when he was constantly rejecting her attempt at public displays of affection because he knows that what she's doing is like ownership. It's not about love. It's not about affection. It's about ownership, and it's about showing the world who is in control, and he can't stand that.
So instead of focusing on one controversial word, it's worth looking at the broader claims Bower makes throughout the book, because that's the part many headlines barely touched and the part that sparked the biggest discussion. Here's where a lot of people miss the bigger picture. According to Betrayal, Camilla didn't simply make a dramatic remark and leave it at that. Bower claims there was a list of reasons behind the views she reportedly expressed. In his telling, it wasn't based on vague impressions or speculation. It was tied to specific changes and events he details throughout the book.
Oh, he's such a great partner. I feel that, right? I feel that every day. And there's something that is not to be taken for granted when you have a partner and a spouse who is just so behind you. I mean,
One example Bower highlights is Harry's reported distancing from longtime friends. He also points to claims that Harry changed his phone number without informing certain family members. Camilla, according to the account in the book, believed Harry's outlook and behaviour were increasingly aligning with Meghan's. Bower describes it as a gradual shift that became more noticeable over time, with opinions and disagreements growing stronger and more entrenched than they had been before. The book goes even further. Bower writes that the once easygoing and widely liked prince became, in his words, possessed by seeking revenge. That's a striking phrase, and it's easy to focus on it alone. But the author's argument isn't built around one quote or one explosive comment. Think about it for a moment.
And she goes on to Sky TV and denounces Harry as a racist and a bully.
People say dramatic things in private conversations all the time. A single remark can be dismissed, One conversation proves very little on its own. But Bauer's case rests on a much larger pattern, he says, unfolds across more than 300 pages of material. According to the book, that pattern repeats again and again.
You know, Piers, you're the first person to say how limited Prince Harry is, unfortunately, and how his wife trades off her husband's fame and fortune, or not so great fortune now. I mean, this is the problem, but we're still interested because, after all, he's a great character in our modern day.
It starts with friendships, then moves to family relationships, then institutions, charities, and eventually Harry's public and commercial standing. Bauer presents what he sees as the same sequence playing out repeatedly: separation, influence, and fallout. And remember that phone number detail? At first glance, it sounds insignificant. Plenty of people change their numbers. But in Bauer's narrative, that small detail becomes an early sign of a much larger story he believes was unfolding behind the scenes. Most people talking about this book stop at the brainwashed quote, roll their eyes, make a quick joke, and move on. That's the easy headline. And easy headlines get attention without requiring much digging. But Bauer's reporting goes much deeper than one controversial soundbite. In the Times serialization published on March 13, Bauer describes a man who, in his view, didn't simply grow apart from his family over time. According to the book, Harry's path changed direction in a much more significant way.
That's why he cuts quite a lonely figure, because his friends have all throughout his life do feel ostracized. He is just a bit of a lonely soul, where she's got her friends in America. He, though, is very much on his own, and I think it's quite...
Bauer writes that, encouraged by Meghan, Harry started pushing for far greater independence from palace management, openly rejecting the traditional role of the royal spare. Think about what that means for a second, because it's bigger than it first sounds. The role of the spare comes with a script. It may not be glamorous, and plenty of people might find it limiting, but it is a defined place within the royal institution. It comes with expectations, structure, and a clear lane. According to Bauer, Harry didn't just become unhappy with that role. He rejected it completely. And the book frames that shift not as a decision he reached entirely on his own, but as one that was encouraged from outside influences close to him.
That man loves me so much. And, you know, look what we've built. We've built a beautiful life, and we have 2 healthy, beautiful children. And yeah, I mean, you have to imagine at the beginning, everyone is like butterflies. And then we immediately went into the trenches together. Yeah.
Then came the confrontation that reportedly left a lasting impression on the family. Bauer describes a 2018 meeting at Kensington Palace where William and Catherine allegedly tried to address concerns before the wedding. And by his account, this wasn't a calm family conversation. Tensions were already running high. During the discussion, Meghan allegedly told William to take his finger out of her face. In Bauer's telling, that moment became one of the clearest signs of how serious the divisions behind the scenes had already become. That's the level we're talking about here. And according to the book, this wasn't William suddenly stepping in out of nowhere to create drama either. Bauer claims William had already warned Harry before the engagement that the relationship with the American actress was moving too quickly. The book also says Catherine came away believing that Meghan was frustrated by Harry's unlikely chances of ever becoming king, viewing his distance from the throne as a source of disappointment. Now here's the part most people skip because they're too busy racing toward the headline. One claim about controlling behaviour? That could be a grudge, a falling out, someone with a reason to tell the story a certain way. On its own, it doesn't prove much, and it should be treated carefully. Then you get a second claim from a different person. Maybe that's still just a coincidence. Maybe it's 2 people reinforcing the same frustration. You stay skeptical, and that's fair. But Bauer's argument goes beyond that.
No comparison there, because Harry continues to back Meghan Markle, publicly back her and all of her terrible behaviour, not to mention the fact that Johnny Depp has always been a bad boy film star rather than a royal trying to do good in the world.
He points to multiple people who, according to his reporting, describe a similar pattern. Camilla allegedly sees it one way. William sees it. Catherine sees it. And as the book continues, other figures connected to later events reportedly describe similar concerns. The reason Bauer believes this matters is because the accounts are presented as coming from different people in different situations at different times, yet arriving at a similar conclusion. That's what makes the story stand out in his telling. Not one explosive accusation, but a recurring pattern, he argues, appears again and again. Different voices, different settings, same general arc. And this is where the story moves beyond royal family tensions and into territory that many people found far more uncomfortable. The next chapter centers on Centerbail, the charity Harry co-founded to support young people in Lesotho. In 2023, Dr. Sophie Shandorka, a Zimbabwean-born corporate finance lawyer and MBE recipient, became chair of the board of trustees at Centerbail. This wasn't just any organization. It was Harry's charity, one he had publicly described as being among the most important commitments of his life. For years, it was closely tied to his public image and charitable legacy. At least on paper, this wasn't some side project or publicity vehicle. It was presented as a cause that carried real personal meaning for him, which is why what happened next drew so much attention.
Never really understood, probably not even now, is that when she was chaired as a working royal, it wasn't because she was Meghan Markle, it was because she represented British royalty and all the values of the Queen and all the tradition and 1,000 years of history.
This was the big one. And according to Bauer's account, Shandauka wasn't the kind of person who arrived just to tell powerful people what they wanted to hear. She didn't show up to smile, agree with everything, and keep the peace. She came armed with data, reports, and findings that carried serious weight. According to the book, during a fundraising flight from Singapore to Tokyo, a trip funded by Japanese philanthropist Hirohisa Honda Shandauka sat down with Harry and shared the results of a brand audit she had conducted. This wasn't a quick opinion or a rough estimate thrown together at the last minute. Bauer says the research involved feedback from 50 separate organizations and donors. Not 5. 50! Those groups were reportedly asked a direct question. Do you want to be associated with Prince Harry? And this is where the story takes a dramatic turn. According to Bauer's account, Shandauka delivered a message that Harry may not have expected to hear. The findings allegedly showed that his personal brand value had suffered significantly. Bauer writes that some donors were reluctant to be linked to his Netflix projects and other high-profile ventures. Then came the statement that quickly exploded across headlines and social media after the serialization was published. According to the book, Shandauka said, "People don't want to be associated with your Netflix shows, and especially not with Meghan." Bauer further claims that Shandauka believed Meghan's public image had weakened, and that concerns about her reputation were affecting perceptions of Harry as well. In the book's telling, this wasn't framed as a personal criticism, but as a conclusion drawn from the feedback she had gathered. Imagine that conversation for a moment. You're 40,000 feet in the air with nowhere to go, no easy way to end the discussion. And someone you trusted to oversee part of your charitable work is calmly presenting data that challenges the public image you've spent years trying to build. According to Bauer, it was a moment that carried major consequences. And according to Bauer, Harry's reaction revealed a lot about how he viewed the situation at that moment. He didn't immediately ask for a deeper breakdown of the data. He didn't reportedly challenge the research methods, question the sample size, or request another audit to compare the results. Instead, Bauer claims he reached for a very different comparison.
She is a person who's done huge damage to the royal family, has been deeply, deeply inaccurate on many issues, and is of absolutely no value either to the royal family or society. But she just sucks from it, she takes from it and exploits it and profits.
According to the book, Harry pointed to Johnny Depp, arguing that despite a highly public legal battle with Amber Heard, Depp had still been able to generate significant public support and commercial success. The question, in essence, was whether the same kind of recovery could happen for him. Shandauka's response, Bauer writes, was short and direct. Times have changed. Then came the comment that the book presents as the real turning point. According to Bauer, she added, "We need American corporates who want to be associated with your mission, not you personally. They don't want your victimhood." Read that carefully because it's the kind of statement that carries a lot of weight. In Bauer's telling, this wasn't coming from a critic, a tabloid columnist, or an online commentator. It was coming from someone Harry had trusted with a leadership role at a charity he publicly described as one of the most important causes in his life. According to the book, Shandauka was effectively arguing that the focus needed to return to the mission itself, rather than the personalities attached to it. Whether people agree with that assessment or not, Bauer presents it as a difficult message that Harry was forced to confront. What makes the episode stand out is what allegedly happened next. Bauer claims that, initially, Harry appeared to take the findings seriously. He reportedly accepted at least some of the concerns being raised and seemed willing to address them. The book points to his October 2024 visit to Lesotho, his first in 6 years, as a sign that something may have been shifting. For a brief period, Bauer suggests there were indications that Harry was refocusing on the charity's work and reconnecting with the mission that had originally inspired the organisation. But according to Bauer's account, that period didn't last. The book claims that after Meghan became involved in discussions surrounding the situation, Harry's approach changed dramatically. Bauer writes that the momentum reversed, the earlier concerns were set aside, and tensions escalated once again. According to the book, Harry then moved to take greater control over Centerbale, setting the stage for yet another major dispute in a saga that was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. According to Bauer, Harry later claimed the audit had caused him psychological harm, and that distinction matters. In the book's telling, the issue wasn't simply the negative findings themselves. The complaint was tied to the audit process and the impact of being evaluated in the first place. Bauer presents that as a significant turning point in the dispute. By March 2025, both Harry and his co-founder, Prince Seeso, had resigned from the charity. The situation had escalated so far that the UK Charity Commission opened an investigation into the matter. To be fair and accurate, which is essential in a story like this, the record doesn't end there. In August 2025, the Commission cleared Harry of allegations that he had engaged in widespread or systemic bullying. That's an important fact, and part of the official outcome. Claims beyond that go further than what the available findings supported. But even with that conclusion, Bauer argues that the broader fallout remained. The charity faced major upheaval. Leadership changes followed. Relationships fractured. And the executive who had reportedly delivered the difficult audit findings was no longer there. Viewed through Bauer's lens, the sequence looked familiar. He points to the same pattern he claims appears throughout the book. Different people, different settings, different conflicts, but what he describes as the same cycle repeating itself again and again.
Says only will talk to people who repeat their own narrative.
Yes.
And who they can control. So the idea that you could get the truth from the Sussexes is contradictory.
In his view, the story had now expanded far beyond royal family disagreements and into the world of charities, governance, and public accountability. Then comes what may be the most revealing chapter of all. Not because of what Bauer wrote, but because of how the Sussexes reportedly responded to the book and the growing controversy around it. From a crisis management perspective, the simplest strategy would have been silence. Stay quiet. Let the headlines run their course. Let public attention move on to the next story. Most news cycles burn out quickly, especially when they're denied fresh material. A cautious advisor might have argued for exactly that approach. Say as little as possible, avoid extending the story, and refuse to give the controversy any additional momentum. But according to Bauer, that's not what happened. But according to Bauer's account, that's not the route they took. On the 14th of March 2026, 12 days before the book's official release, the Sussexes' spokesperson issued a statement to People, Newsweek, and GB News. The statement reportedly described Bauer's work as a deranged conspiracy, dismissed it as melodrama, and argued that he had crossed the line from criticism into obsession. The response was direct, but Bauer didn't back down. He answered through the Daily Express, claiming the Sussexes were running out of options in Hollywood and criticising what he described as their growing self-importance. The public back and forth instantly turned up the temperature around the book. Then came the numbers. By March 15, before a single physical copy had reached readers, Betrayal had climbed to #1 on Amazon's bestseller chart. Suddenly, a book that was already attracting attention became impossible to ignore. Critics of the Sussexes argued that the response had the opposite effect of what was intended. Instead of reducing interest, it appeared to amplify it. The controversy generated headlines, sparked debate, and pushed even more people toward the book. PR expert Renee Smith, founder of Adasisim, told the Express that the reaction made the couple appear deeply concerned by the allegations. Her view was that Bauer had touched a sensitive nerve. Not necessarily because every claim had been conclusively proven, but because some of the themes overlapped with perceptions that portions of the public already held. And that's where the discussion becomes especially interesting. According to supporters of Bauer's argument, the focus of the statement was largely on the author himself, rather than on individual allegations contained in the book. They point out that the response challenged Bauer's credibility and motives, rather than publicly addressing every specific claim, one by one. Whether that was a strategic choice, or simply the preferred way to respond, is open to interpretation. But for people following the controversy, it became a major talking point. And now we're back to that seemingly minor detail from earlier, the phone number Harry reportedly changed without informing certain family members. At first, it sounded like a small, forgettable fact. But in Bauer's narrative, it wasn't presented as an isolated event at all. It was framed as one of the earliest signs of a much larger story that he believes unfolded over the years. Same playbook, isn't it? According to Bauer's broader argument, whenever someone arrives with uncomfortable information, a brother, a sister-in-law, a charity executive, or even a biographer, the conflict quickly shifts away from the information itself and toward the person delivering it. In this telling, the messenger changes, but the pattern stays the same. A friendship ends, a relationship breaks down, a critic is challenged, an author is dismissed. Supporters of Bauer's view argue that the focus repeatedly moves from the claim being made to the individual making it. That's the pattern Bauer believes ties these events together. Not one incident, but a series of disputes that he says follow a similar path over and over again. And this is where the story takes an even more intriguing turn. According to biographer Ingrid Seward, Prince Philip reportedly had a private nickname for Meghan, DUOW, short for Duchess of Windsor, a reference to Wallis Simpson. Once that comparison enters the conversation, it's hard to ignore why some royal watchers found it so striking. In both stories, an American woman enters the royal family. A prince grows increasingly distant from old relationships and established royal structures. Eventually, the couple ends up outside the traditional framework of royal life, and the role that once defined the prince's public identity changes dramatically. Biographer Sally Bedell Smith summed up that comparison in a simple but memorable way. As she put it, an American woman came into the picture and changed the dynamic of the situation. At the same time, it's important not to treat the two stories as identical. There are major differences, and many historians have pointed them out for years. Some revisionist accounts argue that Wallis Simpson actually tried to discourage Edward VIII from abdicating. Others suggest Edward himself was the driving force behind many of the decisions that followed. In that interpretation, Wallis became a convenient target for people looking to explain the actions of a king who may never have fully wanted the role in the first place. That's a fair counter-argument, and it deserves a place in the conversation right alongside everything else. History is rarely as simple or as neat as it's presented in documentaries or headlines, but here's the part that really matters. According to Bauer's argument, the comparison isn't mainly about Meghan and Wallis being the same type of person. It's about what he sees as a similar sequence of events. The focus is on the process, the gradual breakdown of a prince's support network, one relationship at a time, friend by friend, advisor by advisor, institution by institution. Until, in Bauer's view, fewer and fewer voices remain around him. The book argues that Prince Philip recognized that pattern early. Camilla reportedly saw it as well. And Bauer's central claim is that years of events and documented disputes form a trail pointing in the same direction. So where does that leave Harry today? According to Bauer, the answer is simple: worried. The book claims Harry fears that a future King William could potentially remove the Sussex titles. Bauer presents that concern as something Harry takes seriously, and he does not downplay the possibility in his analysis. Publicly, William has said very little. But, according to various royal commentators and sources cited in reporting over the years, the relationship between the brothers remains deeply fractured. Not merely strained or distant, but fundamentally broken. One example often cited is Lord Robert Fellowes' funeral in Norfolk in August 2024. Harry and William were reportedly both present, yet accounts suggest they did not speak, sit together, or interact during the event. For many observers, that silence said more than any public statement could. Then came royal expert Ian Pelham-Turner's assessment. When asked whether William would eventually welcome Harry back into the royal fold, his answer was reportedly blunt: a big fat royal no. Now, it's important to be clear about what this is and what it isn't. These claims come from Bowers' reporting, commentary from royal experts, and publicly discussed accounts, not from direct confirmation by the people involved themselves. The analysis is open to debate, and people can reach different conclusions, but the events themselves are part of the public record. When you line them up one after another, the reported warning from Camilla, the friendships that allegedly faded away, the Kensington Palace confrontation, the Shandauka brand audit, the turmoil surrounding Centre Ballet, the criticism directed at messengers, and even the Wallace-Simpson comparison reportedly made by Prince Philip, a larger picture starts to emerge. At that point, the story becomes about much more than one reported comment from one royal figure. According to Bowers' argument, it's about a recurring pattern that multiple people described at different times and from different positions. His case rests on the idea that these accounts weren't isolated incidents but pieces of a broader narrative that kept resurfacing over the years. What makes the debate so intense is that many of the individuals who raised concerns or offered criticism later found themselves at the centre of controversies of their own. Supporters of Bowers' view see that as significant. Critics see it differently. Either way, the pattern remains at the heart of the discussion. So the question in Bowers' telling was never simply whether Camilla's reported remark was too harsh. The bigger question is why similar concerns appeared in so many different places over such a long period of time. And if Bauer is right, the brainwashed quote and the brand audit weren't the main story at all, they were only the beginning of it. What Bauer uncovered about the Invictus Games in Vancouver is a completely different kind of controversy. And according to the book, it may be one of the most explosive chapters yet. Bauer points to reports of just 43 paying spectators attending a wheelchair basketball match. He also cites claims that some Canadian executives viewed Meghan's presence as more about celebrity attention than rehabilitation efforts. Then there's one specific moment involving a veteran's wheelchair, captured on camera, which Bauer describes in striking and deeply uncomfortable detail. Once you hear what the book alleges happened inside that arena, you may find yourself looking at Invictus coverage in a very different light. Betrayal has been out since March 26, and the debate surrounding its claims shows no signs of fading anytime soon. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. Do you think Bauer's claims hold up? Or is there another side to the story? Let us know.